And that got me thinking that you might be looking for a new apartment too. Alright, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I literally have 2 masks on because I ain't playing. Okay, so you can see this apartment is carpeted. It does come with, hold on, my keys are ringing like crazy. Put this down. So the first apartment has a little fireplace situation over here. We have a balcony with a man smoking weed on his balcony. You know when someone is smoking weed with the way they hold, the way that they hold, there he is, the way that they hold it, you can tell. We have a walk-in closet over here. I am not a fan of carpet, so this apartment is probably a no for me immediately. Okay, so that was the first apartment that I saw today. So we're gonna be on to the second one. I think the second apartment is scheduled for 12 o'clock. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna head back to work. And then I'm going to leave around 12 o'clock and check out the second apartment. I think it's at 12 o'clock. It could be around 11. So I don't know. Okay, so I'm back at my office. Honestly, I am just so exhausted. Apartment hunting is a very exhausting process, especially when you have to constantly look for parking, and it's hot. It's always hot here. Summer in California is not fun. I'm practically like sweating all over the place. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and check back in with you guys when I get home later today. Of course, with YouTube magic, it's gonna be like 1 second from now. But for me, I'm just gonna try to get as much work done as possible since I wasn't here most of the day. There are some people moving out today in my building, and the gardener is here, so I have some stuff to do. I have some paperwork and invoices to pay, so I will check back with you guys later and just wrap up the video. One of the advantages I have when I am looking for a new apartment to move into is that I actually am a property manager. That's what I do for my regular job. So I do understand what I should be looking for and how I should be looking and what steps do I need to do and take when actually looking for an apartment to get the dream apartment that I want and get that security that I want. So I'm just going to be discussing some of the things that you should be doing when looking for your new apartment. So grab a cup of coffee, get some snacks, and let's get started. What I always do when I am looking for a new apartment is I actually just go ahead and try to schedule a full day of looking for an apartment. I make sure that I call as many different properties as possible that has the amenities that I am looking for, the type of apartment I'm looking for, and I schedule it throughout the whole day. And I don't spread it out because what happens is if you end up finding an apartment that you really like, but you still have obligations to see other apartments that you have already scheduled for and you spread it out, by the time you go back to the apartment that you may have really liked and realize that was the one all along, it might be gone. As a property manager, one of the things that I know behind the scenes is that the price in apartments and the inventory in apartments changes literally daily. So if apartment could be literally one price the next day, and then the next day it's a totally different price. So I always like to schedule out my apartment search in one day as much as possible. I know it can be hard because sometimes it's hard to make an appointment due to the fact that it might be booked, so you might have to make an appointment for another day, but I like to get it as close as possible in regards to scheduling the appointments because I want to make it rapid and I want to get through it very quickly. And that way, if I do end up finding an apartment that I really like within the same day, that way I know this is the one and I can easily put a deposit down on it the next day. One of the most important things that people don't probably do correctly when they're searching for an apartment is budgeting. Now, you know that I love talking about budgeting, hence the other videos that I have made about it. But budgeting for an apartment correctly will help you not get denied for an apartment. Now, personally, I've had to deny people for an apartment, and it's not something that I like to do. If I can give you a secret into a property manager's life, denying people for an apartment is not something we want to do at all. We want to make sure that we lease these apartments that we have available as quickly as possible. Number one, we don't want it on our plate anymore. We want the apartment rented and somebody in there so we can stop showing it so damn much. Two, we want to make sure that the property is financially well taken care of and that we're able to pay the bills in the property. And if the apartment building is completely empty, it's going to be hard to do that. When budgeting for an apartment, one of the number one mistakes that people make is income to price ratio. Apartment buildings, as you probably might already know if you're actively searching right now, do require any time for 2 to 2.5 to sometimes even 3 times the rent. That means that you have to make sometimes 3 times the rent over before you're even able to qualify for the apartment. That means if your apartment is $1,000, you have to be making anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000 a month just to qualify. Landlords do this so not only are they confident that you will not default on your rent and you won't be able to pay it because you're such in a very tight financial constraint, but they also do this because they know that eventually they will be raising the rent over the years, and they don't want you to have to hop, skip, and leave every single year because the apartment now is out of your price range. What is a general recommendation when you're apartment searching and making sure that you can actually afford that apartment? Making sure that the apartment is actually 30% of your income. Now, I know you hear a lot of people talking, like I hear this on the news all the time, about people saying that people are paying way too much in rent. And yes, I believe that is true. In certain cities, people are paying upwards of 50% of their rent. A whole paycheck is going towards their rent and sometimes plus some. If that is the case for you, where you're paying like literally 50% in rent, it's time for you to move. I can totally understand that that is probably really difficult for some people because it might be close to your job or whatever the case may be, but you should be paying 30% of your income in rent. So that might mean getting a roommate. Another thing that people should understand when looking for an apartment is the deposit. For me, I normally like to save up for 3 months deposit, so that's the rent 3 times over, just in case. Depending on the apartment building, it's different. So some apartment buildings, they go on the deposit based on your credit score. So one person could have a credit score that's extremely great, extremely high, and they only have to pay $500 deposit, while someone who might have a lower credit score, have more derogatory remarks on their credit score, might have to pay $1,000. The landlord does this because in their credit report that they pull, it shows who is a higher risk. So in case there's an eviction, the landlord has to spend a whole bunch of money on court fees or any of the case, or let's say somebody skips on the apartment, which means that they just up and leave and told nobody. The landlord can actually take that deposit back. But because your credit score is not as good, they recommend a higher deposit because you're technically a higher risk. The type of apartments that I tend to look for are I like mom and pop type property management companies. A lot of times with these mom and pop companies, they don't do deposit based on credit score. They usually do deposit based on first and last month's rent. So sometimes the mom and pop companies would require literally the whole rent as a deposit. So let's say my rent is $1,000, the deposit would be also $1,000. To rent an apartment, if any time is perfect, it's right now. Thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please share if you like this content or if you feel like this video will help others. And please comment down below what is your tricks when looking for a new apartment. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.